Lonzo Ball is one of the more, let's say, controversial players in the NBA. He came into the league with some incredibly high expectations, getting comparisons as big as Magic fucking Johnson. But with those expectations, as you could kind of expect, he did fall short, and in spite of this, however, he has basically an army worth of stans. So even though to many people Lonzo is bad, to as many other people he's fantastic. He's very polarizing. That's probably the best word to describe him. But recently, while I was more in the middle of this debate, he has been amazing this season to the point where I'm starting to wonder if there is still some hope left for Lonzo to become a star level player. Because with the way Lonzo is playing this season, at this point he is a bit better than average for a starter, and with him being just 23 years old, you know, anything is possible. Add on to it that Lonzo has never really been in the perfect situation, and he has found success especially this year in spite of that, makes me really think it is possible for him to be a star level player, so let's talk about it. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. Now jumping into this Lonzo topic, I should say right out of the gate that in a podcast a few weeks ago, I pretty much outright dismissed the notion that Lonzo could still become a star player and live up to the potential he was seen as having coming into the 2017 draft. But my mind has changed as Lonzo has continued to be amazing. Now, I'm not saying it has changed to where he definitely could, but I'm certainly no longer completely on the side of no, Lonzo cannot become a star. As for why I had the change of heart, well, let me explain. Lonzo in the shooting department this year is putting up career highs pretty much across the board, and not just by a little bit. There's some pretty big margins here. He's shooting 39% from 3 on 7.7 attempts per game, which is not just good for Lonzo, who struggled shooting to start his career. 7.7 attempts per game is a lot. 39% is a good bit better than league average. He's nearly at 40. This is elite shooting. Last year, I think he put up borderline elite shooting, but this year, he is definitely shooting the 3 ball at an elite level. This is not a poor shooter, and the idea that he is still a bad shooter is just outright false. He's also shooting a career high at the basket, which has been a struggle for him in his career. 44% from 16 feet to the three-point line, which is very good. 36% from 10 to 16 feet, which is bad, but still an improvement from what he was doing earlier in his career, and he literally only declined from floater range where he's always been bad. This has resulted in a 56% true shooting percentage, which is 1% off of league average, meaning Lonzo is now averaging 14 points per game on nearly league average efficiency. The biggest criticism, and a valid one for Lonzo in his career thus far, has been in spite of his defense and his playmaking ability, simply not being able to score the ball at a high rate or an efficient rate has drastically hurt his impact. But now, while he's not putting up that high of a volume of points, 14 points per game sure as hell ain't bad, and doing it on just short of league average efficiency, that is respectable. He is no longer just some complete zero scoring the ball like he was in the first 2 years of his career especially. Now add on to that the elite playmaking and defense that we mentioned earlier, and suddenly you have a damn good player on your hands. If you think Lonzo Ball is bad at this point, you're just wrong. There's no doubt about that. The guy is at least a decent NBA player at this point. It's not up for debate. Lonzo is now a guy who can space the floor at an elite level, pass the ball at an elite level, and defend at an elite level while being decent enough for mid-range when in the past he's been horrible, decent enough finishing at the basket where in the past he's been horrible. Also, I forgot to mention, he's also increased his free throw percentage by 20% this season, which is a pretty big margin. And if you would like to dismiss some of these shooting numbers because of the fact that there aren't that many fans in arenas, well, I would just like to point out that Lonzo Ball's stretch in the bubble last year was, oh my god, horrible. So I don't know that that's really that big of a factor for him. But all of those things added up, the passing, the defense, solid scoring, great spacing, that is a good player. The question is, though, is this a star level player, or is there potential here for him to be a star level player? Well, I will say outright no, he's not a star player right now, but I do think it's possible that he does become a star, because one of the bigger comparisons that he got out of the draft was Jason Kidd, and one of the biggest arguments that Lonzo stands make in favor of Lonzo still having star level potential is how bad Jason Kidd was in his third season, and comparatively Lonzo was better in his third season. But I don't think this comparison and the way that it's used is very valid. It's pretty poor out of context, because it's ignoring the fact that Kidd missed multiple games in his third year and was traded midway through the season, and was an all-star in his second year, so he just had a season where he declined, and Lonzo was never an all-star level player in his second year, so I don't think that comparison is really all that valid. But I do think there is a valid comparison to Jason Kidd here, because Kidd has had similar scoring struggles throughout his career, or did have. I don't know why he has. He's not been playing for a while now, but Lonzo has actually reached the point where I would argue he's a better scorer than Kidd probably ever was, because while he hasn't quite reached the peak that Kidd had of 18 points per game, he is much more efficient now than Kidd has ever been in his prime. He had a few years post-prime with the Knicks and the Mavericks where his true shooting percentage was around league average, but in general, not an efficient player, Jason Kidd. But despite the fact that Kidd could not score the ball efficiently, he was still able to be a star-level player because of his playmaking and his defense, as well as leadership, which I think Lonzo could definitely take some steps up in. But regardless, from a pure just basketball ability standpoint, I do think Lonzo is an elite playmaker and defensive player, probably not as good as Kidd, but still very good. And then I would argue he's better at scoring the ball now than Kidd ever was. He's certainly a miles better three-point shooter, which in today's era is definitely going to matter a whole lot. What I do think is worth mentioning when talking about Kidd versus Lonzo, though, just so this comparison doesn't get too far, is that Lonzo really doesn't have the quote-unquote it factor. Kidd did. He was an amazing leader, and that's why he was able to take teams to the finals. Part of that was a weak conference, but regardless, still took them there, and that was because Kidd had a bit of an it factor, and I don't think Lonzo has that, which matters. But I'm just saying, purely from a talent standpoint, I don't think it's that ludicrous to compare him to Jason Kidd. But the thing is, the reason why Jason Kidd was also able to break out as a star-level player is that in multiple instances throughout his career, his teams embraced him as one of their franchise players, if not the franchise player, and that really has not been the case with Lonzo Ball thus far. His first 2 years in Los Angeles and his rookie year, he just wasn't that great, which is not ideal. But it's not really his fault, just rookie year. He had the opportunity, just didn't really capitalize on it. But second year comes around, LeBron James joins the team. That's obviously going to limit his ability as a playmaker, and it might increase his ability to shoot, but that's about it. And then third year on the Pelicans was the most he'd been embraced at that point, but even then with Brandon Ingram sharing the floor and Zion for a little chunk of it, not much opportunity for him there, even though there was more playmaking opportunity, and it was definitely an improvement, still not fully embraced. And then this year, while he has improved in spite of it, Eric Bledsoe being on the team has decreased his assist opportunity by quite a bit, resulting in 2 less assists per game, and just him being more of an off-ball guy, being a spot shooter, which has had a positive influence on his shooting numbers, but I don't think it's making him as effective as he could be, because I still think he could have similar shooting numbers on similar attempts, with Brandon Ingram being the playmaker, but also Lonzo having plenty of ability and opportunity with the ball in his hands. So for Lonzo, I think it's mostly a matter of A, keeping this consistent, because we've seen in the past with Lonzo where he has these good stretches and he goes back to being bad, but if he can maintain what he's doing this year, all it really is going to take, to me, is a team embracing him and giving him the proper opportunity to excel. Because the situation Lonzo needs is a lot of passing options, guys for him to serve the ball to. And in the case of the New Orleans Pelicans, it's not a bad place because of Brandon Ingram and, of course, Zion Williamson, who is like a point guard's dream. But with Bledsoe there, he's hindering that opportunity. Another place that I have made it very clear I would love to see him is Chicago. I would love to see him here because he complements Zach LaVine incredibly well. Patrick Williams is breaking out lately. He's a great cut option and a guy who can space the floor. There's plenty of other guys who can shoot the ball on this team that you can pass to. He'd probably make Wendell Carter's life considerably easier. It would just be a match made in heaven to me. There are probably plenty of other teams that could have a very good fit with Lonzo, but really I want a situation where Lonzo is able to be pretty much the primary playmaker and initiator and the guy who's dribbling the ball most of the time, and he hasn't really had that situation other than his rookie year thus far. But actually getting a team to take that risk and just fully be like, Lonzo, we're going to give you all of the keys for one season and see what happens, it's not going to be easy to find that. But if he does, yeah, I think Lonzo could definitely put himself in a star player conversation. Now, am I going to predict that happens? Probably not. Just because, like I said, the situation is going to be hard to find, and Lonzo has had this inconsistency in the past. But at the very least, I do think Lonzo is going to be able to get in a situation where it's at least a conversation where it's like, is Lonzo a star? And even more at the very least, I think he can be in that category of players who is probably not a star level player, but his impact is like at the level of a star level player, like a Marcus Smart type of player, or yeah, just something like Marcus Smart, where he is not considered a star, but damn is that guy impactful, because Lonzo's playmaking, three-point shooting, and defense is already very impactful, and if he just continues to bring that trajectory upward, again, he's only 23 years old, like Kevin Garnett famously said, anything is possible. So, can Lonzo become a star? If I'm a betting man, I'm going to say no, but it's not a safe bet, that's for damn sure. And that's nice to see because Lonzo looked like he was going to be a bust for quite a while. I think there's still an opportunity for him to turn it around. I'm not saying it's impossible for him to still become a bust, but I do believe he is on the right trajectory at the moment. Now the Pelicans just need to either trade Bledsoe or trade Lonzo to the Bulls because I really want him on the Bulls. Anyway, shout out to Rudy for editing this video. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more media content like this, and keep it out your music.